Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Ishtapada Paramhamsa Vegacharya Stotra Shatasri Srimad Divine Grace Abhay Chandra Arvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki all glorious assembled devotees, all glorious assembled devotees, all glorious assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayed Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 23, canto 5, chapter 23, chapter entitled The Sisumira Planetary System. Text number 1. So, do we repeat this or how is it like? I just read it, right? Yeah. Text 1. Shri Shuka Uvacha Atatasmat Paratas Dasha Yojanan Tarataro Yat Tad Vishnoho Paramam Padam Abhivadanti Yatraha Maha Bhagavato Dhruva Autana Pader Agnin Nendrena Prajapatina Kashyapena Dharmena Cha Samakala Yugabihi Sabahu Manam Dakshinatah Kriyamana Idanim Api Kalpa Jivinam Ajivya Upaste Tasye Hanubhava Upavarnitah. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So since this chapter is primarily composing of only translations, so I was told to do the entire chapter. So we're going to read just some select verses and certain purports of Srila Prabhupada, and then we will summarize the whole chapter. Translation. Shukdev Goswami continued, My dear King, 1,300,000 yojanas above the planets of the 7 sages is the place that great learned scholars describe as the abode of Lord Vishnu. There the son of Maharaj Uttanapada, the great devotee Maharaj Dhruva, still resides as the life source of all living entities who live until the end of creation. Agni, Indra, Prajapati, Kashyapa and Dharma all assemble there to offer him honor and respectful obeisances. They circumambulate him with their right sides towards him. I have already described the glorious activities of Maharaj Dhruva in the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in essence, in this particular chapter, it is centered around the Dhruva Loka. So the Dhruva Loka, which in English is called as the pole star, is considered the fixed position around which all the stars and planets are rotating. Okay. So Sisumira planetary system means all these planets and stars, as they are rotating around this Dhruvaloka, they form an imaginary dolphin. So the Sisumira in Sanskrit is translated as dolphin in English. So this particular creature, which is their dolphin, so this entire galaxy of stars, which are all moving around the Sisumira, the pole star, resemble a downward looking dolphin. Okay. And that is what is the content of this chapter. Right. So we'll just see some more important verses and certain purports also of Srila Prabhupada. So the text 3 says, when bulls are yoked together and tied to a central post to thresh rice. Just look at the example that's been given. So previous times, when rice had to be threshed, they would have 3 or 4 bulls connected in a line, and the bulls would keep moving around, right? And then the rice would get threshed. Now what happens when the bulls move around is, the bull which is close to the pole has to walk slowly, the bull that is further away has to walk quickly. उसको जल्दी जाना पड़ेगा ना, उसको जल्दी चलना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि उसका जो circumference है वो ज़्यादा है compared to the bull which is closer. So that example is given in the Bhagavatam. That similarly it is saying that all the planets and hundreds and thousands of stars are revolving around the pole star, and some are moving in higher orbits and some in lower. So the speeds are different. These planets float in the air within the vast sky just as clouds with hundreds of tons of water float in the air, or as great Siena eagles, due to the result of past activities, fly high in the sky and have no chance of falling to the ground. So an example has been given that just like, planets are also moving in the sky, or clouds are being held up in the sky, or Siena eagles are flying high in the sky without falling down due to their past activities. Similarly, all these planets and stars are moving around. Okay, there is a very interesting purport of Srila Prabhupada. I am just reading one paragraph. Regarding the great eagles mentioned in the verse, it is understood that there are eagles so big that they can prey on big elephants. They fly so high that they can travel from one planet to another. They start flying in one planet and land in another, and while in flight, they lay eggs that hatch into other birds while falling through the air. In Sanskrit, such eagles are called Sihena. Under the present circumstances, of course, we cannot see such huge birds, but at least we know of eagles that can capture monkeys and throw them to the ground to kill and eat them. Similarly, it is understood that there are gigantic birds that carry off elephants, kill them and eat them. Okay, so Prabhupada has mentioned this in the purport. So when I was just reading this, I realized Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said one thing, that this 5th canto, it seems, acts as it really tests the faith of a person who is reading it. So those who pass this, they reach the higher cantos. Otherwise, if someone has too many problems with doubts, etc., then he stopped here. That's on a lighter note though, but it is said by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I'll elaborate on that a little bit later. Anyway, now coming more to the Sisumira planetary system itself. So I'm just reading from, this Sadaput Prabhu has summarized this entire, how this looks. Okay, so this is basically from the 5th canto only, 23rd chapter, text number 5 and 6. It basically says that the Sisumira which is there, this dolphin, each part of the dolphin's body is mapped to certain constellation. So the end of the tail is mapped to the Dhruvaloka, the body of the tail to Prajapati, Agni, Indra and Dharma, the base of the tail to Data, Vidata, the hips to the Saptarishi, the Saptarishi stars, the 7 sages, it is called like that only. The right side of the dolphin are the nakshatras marking Udagayana. The left side are the nakshatras marking Dakshinayana. The back is Ajaviti, that is Moola, Uttarashada and Purvashada. So there are these 28 nakshatras. And all these nakshatras are mapped to different parts of the Sisumira. Okay, the abdomen is mapped to Akasha Ganga, right and left loins to Punarvasu and Pushya, right and left feet to Ardhra and Aslesha Nakshatra, right and left nostrils to Abhijit and Uttarashada, right and left eyes to Shravana and Purvashada, right and left ears to Dhanishta and Moola, the ribs on the left side, 8 nakshatras from Magha to Anuradha, and ribs on the right side, the 8 nakshatras from Marga Shirsha to Purva Bhadra, and the right and left shoulders are mapped to Sadha, Bisha and Jyeshta Nakshatra. So in this way, the Sisumira planetary system has been described. Okay, so we'll just read one or two more verses and then we will start a discussion. So, after describing the Sisumira planetary system, the Bhagavatam says that, my dear king, of course it's being addressed to Parikshit, the body of the Sisumira thus described should be considered the external form of Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Morning, afternoon and evening one should silently observe this form of the Lord as the Sisumira Chakra and worship him with this mantra. O Lord, who has assumed the form of time, O resting place of all the planets moving in different orbits, O master of all the demigods, O supreme person, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you and I meditate upon you. So in this way, this entire Sisumira planetary system is meditated upon by certain yogis. Right? And the final verse says that the body of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, which forms the Sisumara Chakra, is the resting place of all the devatas and all the stars and planets. One who chants this mantra to worship the Supreme Person 3 times a day, morning, noon and evening, will surely be freed from all sinful reactions. If one simply offers his obeisances to this form or remembers this form 3 times a day, all his recent sinful activities will be destroyed. Okay, in this way there are just 9 verses in this particular chapter, but it in this way summarizes the Sisumira planetary system. Okay. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauramani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So today we just read some of the translations and from this particular 23rd chapter which describes the Sisumira planetary system. So the first thing is, the Bhagavatam in the 5th canto, there is this beautiful verse in chapter 16, text number 4, where it says that, no person in this world is capable of fully describing the material universe even in a lifetime as long as that of Brahma. Okay, so this is a verse that has already been read. This came in the 16th chapter, text number 4. It says, even if you had the lifetime of Brahma, you couldn't really comprehend it. And this is something where we start off from. So, the mysteries of the universe are such, it's just bewildering. Even ordinarily, if you see from modern physics perspective, I was reading some of the works of Sadaput Prabhu, who has done a lot of writings in this regard. He just gives an example about how the scientists get baffled. He says that since many years, scientists know how to weigh various bodies in the universe. Like, solar system ka weight kya hai? They can find out. And okay, so using some gravitational principle theories and all, they know the weight of the solar system, what is supposed to be the weight. It seems they also know the weight of the known bodies of the solar system. So there are some bodies in the solar system which are known to them. Mars, Mercury, Jupiter. Iska weight malum hai. The difference between the weight of the original solar system, what they have computed by their mathematics, and the weight of the known bodies is 99%. 99%, 90 to 99% of the weight is unaccounted for. Are you understanding? So that means according to their own theories, this must be the weight. लेकिन जो दिखाई दे रहा है उसका weight इतना ही है, और जो difference है, it's not a minor thing. It is 90 to 99%, he says. And that's what they call as missing marks, dark matter. बहुत अलग-अलग नाम दिया है उसको. Okay, so the point, and this is about solar system. We are not even talking about Milky Way, or we are not talking about some very far object. We are talking about the neighborhood of what we are living in. Okay, so whether you will read from the Bhagavatam or whether anyone reads from the Bodhisattva's, this much is, to describe the universe is extremely difficult. So just for that, I give that example also, just to have an understanding that how difficult it is. So Sadhaput Prabhu writes a beautiful line. He says, hence the Vedic approach is to describe nature based on a strategy of presenting mutually compatible aspects of one human indescribable complex whole. Okay, so there is one indescribable complete whole, which is the universe. But this indescribable complete whole has many compatible aspects of what humans can perceive. And these different things have been described. Okay, so he gives an example. It is just like the blind men trying to understand the elephant. So by definition, they cannot understand the elephant. But one will touch the trunk and say something, one will touch the tail, one will touch, and then they will all tell what the elephant is. And you can combine all together and try to imagine how the elephant must be. Because as the Bhagavatam has already stated, as a conditioned living entity which is stuck with certain set of senses and a body, everything, to really understand the whole universe is out of question. So at least like the blind man trying to understand different aspects of the elephant, let us try to understand some things and appreciate how things are. So this is the strategy he writes. And he says that this strategy should not be seen as a limitation. He says that science also employs similar strategies only. He goes on to say that if you look at scientific theories of atomic scientists, he says atomic physics is explained using two phenomena. Sorry, I'll not go too much into it. This is the last part of physics I'm taking. He says that atomic phenomena is understood by one what he calls as the wave theory and one particle theory. And he says that though these two contradict each other, but both explain some aspects of life. So both are used. Are you getting the point? Okay, so let's not go into what is wave theory, what is particle theory. I mean, that would be, we'll have to stop the Bhagavatam, we'll have a physics class. But the point that he's making, it's a very simple example he's giving. These two are mutually contradictory, he says, but they both also explain different aspects of physics which are acceptable. So both are used to explain. And now you make out what it could be. So it's like that. So why he's giving these examples is to say that one shouldn't, because when you're describing a phenomena which is so indescribable, then you necessarily have to adopt such strategies only. Okay. Is that okay? Yeah. So that is the point that is being made here. Right. Now coming to another thing he says, that so what he has done in his books is, this Sisumira constellation which is there, which we just read, how this dolphin is looking. He has used a software and found out that 3,000-4,000 years ago in India, the sky actually indeed looked like that. Okay, so he has given a drawing also. He says that if you go back some 3,000 or 4,000 years in the past, the sky, all these planets and stars, see, because these are all moving, na? So it's not going to be always like that. Right? The Bhagavatam has already said, like the bulls are moving around, we read that translation, na? Like the bulls are moving around, threshing the rice, all these stars and planets are moving around. So as they move, the way they look also changes. Okay, so it's not that always they're looking like a dolphin. That changes slightly. But the most perfect manner in which they were looking like a dolphin, you'll have to go back some 3,000-4,000 years in the past. And that night sky, if you plot it, then you will understand that yes, it looks like this only. And then he goes on to describe how in our Shastra, I mean, see, so one thing you can really appreciate is, I mean, even if someone were to say that, hey, I can't, all these Bhagavad Puranas and all have been written by some people in the past, who had nothing else to do, so they came up with various stories, etc. If somebody alleges like that, then one point is that the Puranas, the Mahabharata and all that, so many events which they present about the night sky is so baffling. Like he gives another example, and then we will come back to our class. He gives this example of starting date of Kali Yuga. So he says that as per our Puranic and Vedic tradition in general, Kali Yuga began on the midnight of 17th, 18th February 3102 BC. He says when it was midnight at Ujjain. Okay. And the sky was such that all the planets were in one line, and Rahu, which is the ascending node of the moon, was right on top of the earth. So that's like the description. And then he goes on to use the same software and plot it and find out whether indeed the sky was like that. And it happens that it was like that. Then he says, how did these people who wrote the Puranas come to such understandings? Did they use some mathematics and back calculate? Because many of the Western scholars, what they say is that all this was written very recently, right? So he says, if they had to back calculate, even today, if you back calculate using hand mathematics, you will end up with an error of at least 2 years and you will hit a wrong date. But these people have hit the exact date. So one may not believe in Kali Yuga, one may say, I don't believe in all this. Okay, fine, you don't believe in Kali Yuga. But then you will have to accept that the planets that they have mentioned, they are in one line only. That is there. Correct. So I may not accept the principle of Kali Yuga, but the idea of how they have mentioned the planets, that is there only, right? You can't say that has not happened. So the thing is, so he goes on to say that, from this we can understand, we can come with 2-3 interpretations, he says. I mean, if one is not willing to accept. One is that, one is the standard version. Standard version is what? That people in those times either had communication with higher beings or whatever due to the Rishi, Tapasvi power or whatever, they knew about how things are in the sky. They knew about it. Okay? And they wrote it actually the way it is. Otherwise, suppose one says, no, I don't want to accept it, and I want to say that all this Bhagavatam and everything is just some mythical story. Even then you will have to accept that in the middle of all these stories that they wrote, they came up with fantastic astronomical facts, which was very advanced for people in those times. Are you understanding the point? Okay, so now we will come to a more grounded discussion. The point is that in the Western world, if you see, even 500 years back, these people were debating whether Earth is flat or Earth is round. Right? I mean, that's the contemporary comparison. Radha Vrindavan Chandra Bhagavan ki jai, Gaur Nitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jagannath Baldev Subhadra ki jai. So if you go back 500 years back, Christopher Columbus, when he was trying to discover India, they were debating whether Earth is flat or round. Right? Even if you see the calendar, it's such an amazing thing, but we really don't understand. To have a perfect calendar, you need understanding of stars and nakshatra, right? Like if you see the Panchanga system, which is composed of Tithi, Nakshatra, Var, all these things, without understanding the sky, you cannot make a calendar. And the current English calendar that we use, this got finalized, you will not believe, just 300 years back. Do you know that? 350 years back only they finalized it. There is one, that's why it's called Gregorian calendar, if you know. Because there was this Pope Gregory somewhere in the 16th or 17th century. In his times, they understood that their calendar is completely off track. So somewhere in the middle of September, after September 5th, they directly jumped to September 19th. Some 13-14 days they just cut. Because they understood pura calculation galat ho gaya. Are you understanding? They just cut everything. They said, no, our whole calculation has gone wrong. Okay. And of course, if you go back, then even it was terrible because they had only 10 months in the year. Like we know all that, right? July and August they added later based on their two kings, Julius and Augustus. Correct? So, otherwise September is the 7th month, November is the 9th month. They had only 10 months in their year, the Roman calendar. Because it is only a solar calendar without proper, this calculation is not there. But our Panchang system, if you see, for thousands of years, it has not changed like this. Correct. Why? Because it's very unique. Right? Luni-solar bolte hai usko na. That means it has connection to the moon and the sun. Our festivals are aligned to the moon, but the year is aligned with the sun. That's why you have the concept of Adhik Mas and Kshaya Mas. Correct? So when the sun enters an extra solstice, then there is an Adhik Mas, and sometimes there is a Kshaya Mas also. You may have not come across that. I think the last one was somewhere in 1981 or something. That means in some years, 1 month is removed. That is because the sun doesn't enter a new solstice. It's not done randomly. It's all connected to this only. The stars, planets and everything. Without that, you cannot have Adhik Mas, Kshaya Mas concept. If you see, in the Western world, there are only two calendars. One is the Christian calendar, which I told you got finalized only some 200-300 years back. Pakka kiya unhone. And if you see the Islamic calendar, that is even off track. That even now it's only lunar calendar. So in 1 year, they have 354 days. They don't have 365 days. That is why all their Eid and all, it comes different times of the year. Matlab 11 days aage jata rehta hai. Right? Like our Diwali will come only in, Janmashtami comes in August, correct? Diwali will come in October, November. So there are fixed times na, when Akshaya Tritiya comes now. So fixed times, right? When some particular festival comes. Islamic calendar is not like that. Because of 354 days. So every year 11 days it will keep going. So throughout the year it will go. Because it's not aligned to the sun. But the system our rishis have made, the Panchanga system, it is so perfect. It has not changed in 5,000 years. That is accepted by all. And it exactly calculates everything. Okay, so why I am saying this is, this was all there because in the tradition itself, these things were so important. The understanding of the stars, nakshatra, planets, this was there. Even demons used it. Like in the Ramayana, if you see, Ravana kidnaps Sita in a muhurta when Ram cannot get her back. Can you imagine? You are a demonic fellow. It is just like a terrorist is there. He uses atomic knowledge to create a bomb, right? To destroy somebody. So the knowledge is knowledge. You can use it for a negative thing also. Correct? So Ravana, muhurta means what? You have to understand nakshatra for it. Which nakshatra is going on today. Okay. So he kidnapped Sita at that nakshatra, muhurta, thinking that in this muhurta, if anything is lost, he will not get it. But can you imagine how much calculation he did? Ravan sitting. He didn't send Marich at a random time. He thought, no, I should kidnap Sita in such a way that Ram will not get her back. And for that. And what did Jatayu do? He fought immediately, delayed the muhurta, and went to the next muhurta. When the rule in that muhurta is, if anything is lost, you will surely get it back. So that was his contribution. So it was not that he simply gave up his body. No, it is there. Jatayu tells Rama, you will get Sita back. Because this is the muhurta in which he has been lost now. In Ramayana, if you see, so much of astrology is there, right? Because everything is connected to the stars. So why I am saying this is, in our ancient times, people actually connected to the stars and the sky much more than what we are doing today. Much more. Even for routine things, if you see. Like, I come from South India. So in South, when a husband and wife would get married, on that night, they had to see the Dhruva Loka. See, we are reading that only today, na? Sisumira planetary system. Everything is moving around Dhruva Loka. Because the idea was you would see on Dhruva Loka and get that determination to be fixed in your relationship. In Maharashtra, it is said that traditionally, may not be happening now, when couples would get married, that night, they had to observe the Vashishta and Arundhati, that star, that nakshatra they had to observe in the sky. Because these are examples of amazing couples in our Shastra and tradition. Right? So when you connect to them, there is a samskar that comes in you. That I am looking at Vashishta and Arundhati. And hamara marriage may be, humko unke jaisa rehna padega. We have to be like them in our life. Nowadays people don't do that. Nowadays people don't even care about muhurta so much. The muhurta is there and they're just decorating in the parlor and getting late and some other time only they get married. Now we don't know what will happen actually.
वो रावण का जैसे हो जाएगा, मतलब एक मुहूर्त था किडनैप करने का, दूसरे मुहूर्त में किडनैप किया है
पता नहीं क्या होगा फिर, right? So why I'm saying this is how important this was in the tradition. This is how important it was in the tradition. Even farming, it is said that, like there are some nakshatras, like today we are reading about the 28 nakshatras. There is a Nakshatra Rohini. It is said that this Rohini nakshatra is connected to fertility. Connected to fertility. So a farmer, if he would sow his seeds on Rohini nakshatra, the crop would be very good. So it is said that even 100 years back in India, this tradition of reading Panchang was there. Right? Like every day people would read which tithi, we also have that in our temples. Like in the morning in some way we read, right? Today is this and this day, such and such thing. This is coming from that only actually. It's a traditional thing where every day one had to see the calendar. Which var, which nakshatra, what is it going on, what is the Rahu Kal today, what is the timing. It's all connected, right? And then they would decide what they want to do. Okay. Even, so like Rohini nakshatra, even when you haven't had a child, okay, there are tithis nakshatra when it is favorable for the man and woman to unite. When it is not, when something else will happen. Everything is connected to nakshatra only. Everything is connected to these stars. So that is why, so why I am saying all this is, that is why in the Bhagavatam, when we read such a description of Sisumira planetary system, we should not get confused. That why they are talking, because for them this was daily talk. हर दिन ये important था बोलना कि भाई night sky क्या है. Correct. You see in the Mahabharata, that beautiful chapter is there, right? Where our Dhritarashtra is asking Vyasa, what is the outcome of the war? And one chapter Vyasa is only describing the sky. Saturn is at Aldebaran, Mars has done a retrograde at Antares. Full sky he is describing, one full chapter. And then at the end he is concluding, this sky means great devastation on the earth. All your children, your whole Vamsha is only going to get destroyed. That's just one line at the end of the chapter. But first, the whole sky is being described. First, whole sky is being described. Okay, so this is something that we could actually use in our preaching also and tell people that in the Vedic system, the metaphysical was connected to the physical. The metaphysical is astrology. Right? Like Vyasa is saying that there is destruction of your dynasty. Sab bacche tumhare mar jayenge. That is metaphysical. You can't see that. But it is connected to the physical. It is connected to the sky. Okay. So if somebody is reading Mahabharata or our Puranas in general, one may say, I don't believe in these stories, they are all metaphysical. But the metaphysical has a physical underlying it. You can't deny the fact that the sky was like this. Correct? And there are research done which shows that indeed somewhere in 3000 BC the sky was like that on one fine night. Okay. Which basically means that, so that you cannot deny. You cannot deny that. Okay. Because that is there only. Correct. Because our whole Shastra is based on this only. Even if you see in the 6 Vedangas, one Vedanga is Jyotisha. Why? What was the purpose of Jyotisha? Now that's very interesting. Why was Jyotisha a Vedanga? It is said the purpose of Jyotisha was to tell you when to do the sacrifice so that you get maximum results. It was actually speaking, like one scholar of astrology whom I heard at one point of time, he was saying that the purpose of astrology in our Shastra is actually not so much to find out what happens with us. Like people are more interested to go to an astrologer to find that, na mera kya hoga, 2 saal baad, 3 saal baad. He says actually that was not the purpose. We are using it for that. But the purpose of Jyotisha Shastra was to ascertain when to do yajna. Uske liye tha wo. Because it seems a king had to do a yajna for multiple years sometimes, a long time. So they had to first find out whether he will be alive, whether there is any danger to his life. Because if there is, and he starts the yajna and in the middle only it stops, then there is a danger. It is considered inauspicious. So they had to ascertain, all the people who are doing the sacrifice, whether they have the health, everything to stay on for those many months or whatever when they were doing. Otherwise they wouldn't start. That was one purpose. So like this, the purpose of Jyotisha was related to performing sacrifices. Right? To ascertain when to do. whether we can do at this time or what. So this is what I'm saying. जो metaphysical है ना हमारे scriptures में, that is connected to the physical. That is connected to the physical. And that's why astronomy is there. And that's why stars are there. And that is why mathematics is there. Like people ask sometimes, अरे आप कैसे बोलते हो कि आपके वेद में इतने सारे mathematics था? Because without mathematics, you cannot do all these calculations only. Even simple thing to understand when eclipse will happen, when this will happen, you need some mathematics. Without that, how will you resolve only all this? So everything gets connected. Okay, there is nothing like a math textbook in the Vedic this thing. But automatically it will come. When they have to describe about yajna, then geometry will come. Because yajna means size of altar. Altar can be circular. So circle means you have to define pi, na? Because without pi, how can you define a circle? So then all that also comes. So this is how our Shastras, the highest purpose was always pleasing and connection to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in order to do that, the physical was there. Okay. Now let's, from here, let's go to the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Because the Bhagavad Gita is again, in connection to what we are talking only, we are going to talk from the Gita in the next 10-15 minutes. The amazing thing about Bhagavad Gita is, in Gita, Krishna talks about both the Shakti and Shaktiman. Today we are reading in this particular chapter in the Srimad Bhagavatam about Shakti. Correct? What did we read? We read that the yogis imagine this Sisumira planetary system and they meditate on it. That is actually meditating on the energy of the Lord, Shakti. Okay? And there is Shaktiman. So generally it is understood connecting to the Shaktiman is Bhakti Yoga and connecting to the Shakti is Jnana. Okay? Connecting to Shakti is Jnana. And it is so interesting that Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he is so inclusive. Okay? He is not very exclusive. Now let me just define these two terms. Exclusivity means to say that this is the only way, and if you don't do this, you are going to hell only. Something like that. Right? Like something like how the Western religions preach. This is the only way, this is the only prophet, this is the only path. Ya nahi aaye tumne jo bhi kiya narak hi jane wali ho tum. That kind of a thing. That's very exclusivist. Let's see how Krishna is inclusive. We all know that between 7th to the 12th chapter is Bhakti Yoga. General understanding is first 6 chapters of the Gita focus on Karma Yoga, last ke Jnana Yoga, beech ke Bhakti Yoga. But even in the Bhakti Yoga ka section hai na, if you see that, Krishna is very inclusive in that also. Like if you see 7th chapter, if you see 9th chapter, Krishna says, for example, the 7th chapter, I am the taste of water. Rasoham apsa kaunteya. Prabhasmi sashi surya yoho. Pranama sarva vedesho shabdake paurusham nrushu. Somebody may say, I don't want to accept Krishna as a person. He is not. Krishna says, look for divinity in water. Pani pite ho na, usme divinity hai. That divinity is me. Okay? Even if you don't want to understand that that is Krishna, the personality who is playing the flute, etc. But even while drinking water, if you think that this water has something divine in it, that is it. That is beginning of your connection to the Supreme Lord. Even without understanding that this is Krishna. Can you imagine how? See, the point is, these chapters are about Bhakti Yoga. But even there, Krishna has included so many verses like this. Correct? Paurusham Nrushu, ability in man. Right? Aren't everybody in the world enamored or impressed when you see someone with a great ability? If you look at all the sports, what happens in that? They are all showing off their different ability, right? Koi marta hai ball, koi, is kicking the ball in the goal in a fantastic manner or whatever, right? It's just an ability. That ability is impressive, believe it or not. It's very impressive. When you look at the ability, sometimes some forward is there of someone, who hit a goal in such a manner that it went like this and went into the net. If you look at it, you think, how did this fellow do it? That ability is Krishna. That ability, And what to speak of all the other abilities, everything that represents his vibhuti. It's not his incarnation, it is vibhuti actually. Vibhuti is different from avatar. Okay. 9th chapter also. 9th chapter is considered the centerpiece of Bhagavad Gita, where we have the favorite verses of devotees like Manmana Bhava Madbhakto and all that. But even in that chapter, Krishna is saying, Ekatvena Pratatvena Bahuda Vishwatomukam. He is saying you can approach the Supreme Ekatvena by understanding Him as one. Pratatvena, various devatas. Bahuda Vishwatomukam as a universal form. Like today we are reading Sisumira Planetary System. It is actually part of Bahuda Vishwatomukam only. That means meditating on parts of the universe as Him. It is imagined, mind you. But there is divinity in it because this is all His creation only. Okay. So why is it that Prabhupada writes also in one of the purports that everybody may not, though as devotees we would love everyone to be connected to Shyam Sundar Krishna, but Krishna also is aware and we also know that everybody is not like that. Some people like such complicated things only to meditate upon. And the beauty is Krishna has accommodated everybody in that. That is why we are saying Krishna is so inclusive in His presentation. Correct. He has included all these people as transcendentalists only, mind you. This Ekatvena, Pratatvena, Bahuda, Vishwatomukam, सबको transcendentalist के net में ही भगवान ने पकड़ा है. He is not looking at them as, he's saying, okay, fine, if that's what you like, great. That facility is there. You can advance from that. And that's what the Bhagavatam is also saying here. Meditate on the Sisumira planetary system like the dolphin and start from that your spiritual journey. चल जाएगा. Okay. Now, why this is very important, more so in today's world. Today's world, there is so much of conflict in terms of religions, especially due to this exclusivity in certain religious systems. Correct. Certain religious systems are very open. They have statements that say that our God is a jealous lover. He likes only if you connect to Him. That's why in many of these Western religions, worship of nature only is forbidden. Because they don't see that as divine. It's actually terrible if you think about it. They don't see nature as divine. For us, Prakriti is Deva. Devim Prakritim Ashritaha. There is a divinity in nature. Every aspect of nature, there is a divinity. We worship Krishna, personal Krishna. But even for us, as Vaishnavas also, there is divinity in Prakriti. And we offer to that. But these other people, they don't see only. For them, divinity is only in that one way to connect. It's so exclusive and violent if you think about it. If you really soberly think about it, it's very violent in the consciousness. And that's why they're violent to nature also. That's why in our system, our rivers are sacred. Right? Rivers are sacred. Every day morning, actually when you are taking bath, we are supposed to chant Gangai cha Jamunai cheva Godavari Saraswati Narmada Sindhu Kaveri Jalesmin Sannidhim Kuru. Let all these waters come here in this water when I am taking my bath. I am invoking all these rivers in this bucket before I actually poured that on me. Those rivers are sacred. The soil is sacred. Like if you see in some traditions in India, they worship the coconut tree also. It's considered literally because these are all aspects of that. And it's all there in Bhagavad Gita if you think carefully, right? If you see the 9th, 10th chapter, it's all about that. How you see Krishna and everything in Him. Everything in Him. And Chaitanya Charitamrita, you read the first verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, right? Vande Guru Nisha Bhakta Nisha Vatarakan Tat Prakashan Tat Shakti Krishna Chaitanya Samyakam. If you see that first 14 verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, and the 14th verse, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, all these 6 are Supreme Personality of Godhead. We just read that, the 14th verse of the first chapter. Which 6? Vande Gurun, the Gurus. All Gurus. Again, there is a oneness in that. All Gurus. My Guru, we may follow Srila Prabhupada, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Shankaracharya. All Vande Gurun. Isha Bhaktan, the devotees of the Lord, like Srivas. Srivas is one example. So many devotees. Isha Avatarakan, Avatara, incarnations, like Advaita Acharya. So many. Tat Prakasham, his plenary portions, like Nityananda Prabhu. Tat Shakti. See, that's why I said, Shakti is Shaktiman. Shakti in Chaitanya Charitamrita is embodied by this personality called Gadadhar Pandit. Correct? But that's just one thing. One shouldn't think that Udari Shakti, hey. No, it's not like that. He is one embodiment of Shakti in that pastime of the Lord. But this Prakriti is also Shakti. All this Sisumira planetary system is also Shakti only. And Krishna Chaitanya, the Lord Krishna Himself, who has come as Chaitanya. All these 6 are one Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says. And they are all considered as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's all considered like that. This is the inclusivity of the Shastra. Right. Okay, we'll just end with a story from Ramayana, again connected to this. Because one feature of exclusive love is that, unfortunately, you tend to offend others. I'll just tell why. Exclusivity mein kya hota hai na? When you're exclusively in love with someone, like we see in a mundane sense also, boy and girl are exclusively so-called love with each other. Then they actually offend everybody else, their parents, grandparents, sab useless hai, sirf hum dono hai ek dusre ke liye, and all that stuff. So exclusivity brings out that criticism to everything else. And this happens not only in a mundane sense, even in a transcendental sense. Transcendental means not in the pure transcendental sense, but those who are on some kind of spiritual path. That's why I said, like Abrahamic religions and all, if you see carefully now, they have that so-called exclusive love for their prophet. They end up offending everybody else, killing everybody. They don't find only any problem in it. In the Ramayana, the example that I want to take is that of Lakshmana. Lakshman had that exclusive love for Ram. And we see that as a result of that, he ends up offending Bharata. Right? In the Ayodhya-kand, that story is there. His offending Bharata, please notice, due to his love for Ram, no other reason. When he got up on that tree and he saw the army of Bharat coming and he said that, hey Ram, look at this entire army coming. This is Bharat coming today. My Dhanushya is not going to stop. This entire area is going to be wet with the blood coming from Bharata and this entire army. I'm going to single-handedly destroy everybody. He starts blasting them left, right, before anything has happened. And if you see the next chapter, the Lord Rama's response, it's just amazing. Rama says, how did you come to this conclusion? That Bharat has come to kill us or something. I know that he has come to return the kingdom to me. And let me tell you one thing, Lakshman. I will tell Bharat, give this entire kingdom to Lakshman and he will give it to you. You go and sit over there. And Lakshman becomes extremely so my God, how is he saying like this? And there is one Acharya who writes a commentary that later when that Kabandha had attacked, Lakshman was punching him. He was thinking of this thing. That Ram had told me like that, go and become king. Oh, sab gussa iske upar dal diya. Somewhere that anger had to come out. That Kabandha is, banging him. Okay. So I'm using this as an example to say that sometimes in the exclusive love, one has to be careful. Because, one may cross some boundary like Lakshman did. Okay. Without understanding how everybody is part of the Supreme Lord. Even Bharat is part of Ram's whatever, right? Entourage only. But due to his exclusive love, you felt only I have that love. He doesn't have. So this danger exists. This is why Shastras also warn us on this. Okay, there are so many other things we could say, but we would end by just summarizing that today we read from the 23rd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam 5th canto, the Sisumira planetary system. And we saw how in this particular chapter, Shukadeva Goswami is describing this whole pole star and all the 28 nakshatras surrounding it as a dolphin, and says that yogis meditate on this Sisumara dolphin and they obtain Krishna. Okay. Then we started discussing how in our Vedic system, stars and nakshatras are very important. We said how our Panchanga is based on all these concepts only, and that is why it is very solid. We said that how our metaphysical ideas are based on certain physical ideas underneath. Okay. Our Panchang may be metaphysical. One may say, what is the Narsing Chaturdashi and all that. But it is based on Chaturdashi. Without understanding Chaturdashi, you cannot understand Narsing Chaturdashi, right? So it's based on that idea. And hence astronomy was very important. We said not only for spiritual things, even for like a farmer understanding importance of nakshatra, even a husband and wife understanding importance of nakshatra, nobody did anything. This was Bharata Bhumi. Okay. Then we said that how our Bhagavad Gita, our Krishna, what we can appreciate about our Krishna, even though we love, our devotees love the personal form of Krishna, we can appreciate how Krishna is so inclusive. Even in the middle 6 chapters, which are supposed to be purely Bhakti Yoga, he has kept everybody there also. He has said, you look at me in water, look at me in this, look at me in that. Yahan par divyata dekho. Ekatvena, pratatvena, vishwatomukam, sab jagah dekho tum. Why he has done that? Because by definition, Sanatana Dharma is very inclusive. It's not that exclusive. Exclusive love is very important for an individual, let's remember. But that individual always has to be very careful that due to that exclusive love, he doesn't offend others, like Lakshman. Lakshman's love for Ram is very necessary. But due to that, Bharat cannot be offended. Okay. And these kind of teachings are very pertinent in today's times, where in the world we see due to exclusivity in religious systems, there are so many challenges and so on. Right. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any question or comment? Maybe we can just take one or something. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for very nicely explaining all these wonderful concepts. One question I had about this inclusivity and exclusivity, that as you were mentioning in the end also, that one should have this exclusivity for oneself. And when we see that if we are very inclusive, then there are a lot of chances of getting distracted from our main goal or the
Yeah.
the main person. Like if we see, then our philosophy is specifically, like, many people have commented in the outside world that the philosophy that Prabhupada has presented is very similar to, like, many people have compared it with the Abrahamic religion, because Prabhupada is very, very strict that only Krishna and very specific. And even our acharyas, they say that, like in the higher meditations, I've heard that they say that exclusively they have to meditate on like Brajendra Nandan Krishna. So how do we balance?
Yeah. Good question. Actually, I was going to touch on that in the end. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a classic example of this. Mahaprabhu, that is why it is said he was in three moods: completely internal, completely external, semi-internal, external. And if you see one story in Mahaprabhu's life which is very interesting. Chaitanya Bhagavata talks about it. As Nimai Pandit, one day he was chanting Gopi Gopi, in the mood of Gopi. Then some Bengali fellow told him, why don't you chant Krishna Krishna? What is this Gopi Gopi you're doing? Now if you see, that person, what he said, that was correct in a normal sense. Are you understanding the point? So what did Mahaprabhu respond? Because Mahaprabhu was in complete internal consciousness. He said, what, you're asking me to chant the name of the debauchee Krishna, who simply ran with another lover, something like that Mahaprabhu started saying, right? And he started going to beat him. Then that fellow went and told everyone, I gave this person sane advice, chant the name of Krishna. He started giving gali to Krishna and started beating me. Do you know after that incident what happens? Mahaprabhu thinks it is time for me to take sannyas. Now why did he do that? Because the idea is, when you become so much exclusively in your object of worship, you don't exist in society. Because in society, if you exist like that, you cause challenges for people. Are you getting it? There's a very important lesson in that story of Mahaprabhu and that Bengali. Because Nimai Pandit realized that I can't live only now here under normal circumstances like this, because I'm in a completely different... Actually, after that chapter only, if you see, that thing comes up that he decides to take sannyas. He says that, I cannot live like this. So this was one thing very standard in our scriptures also. Someone who was very exclusive in his inner worship also, he wouldn't affect society much. Are you getting it? See, this is one major difference between our acharyas, our Supreme Lord, and the Western guys. These Abrahamic fellows, in their exclusivity, they destroy societies and the countries only. But in our system, it is not like that. People are conscious. Now I am internally so much connected to Krishna, like Madhavendra Puri. I can't understand anything else only in this world. So then they move away consciously. And even when they have to interact, they become very externally conscious. That's why it is said later, when Mahaprabhu also, he was in those three moods. Internal, when he was internal, he was like gone. Completely exclusive in his heart, thinking about Radha, Krishna, those pastimes. Then you couldn't talk about Sisumira planetary system and all. He was in a different world totally. But then he would be external also. Where he would understand how to deal with people. How to, how to observe that proper etiquette and everything. Okay, so this is very important. So this is one major difference. These other fellows whom you mentioned, the Western guys, they are exclusive in society only. They openly say that if you have not, you will see auto rickshaws also in Pune with slogans of their religious system saying that only this person can save you. Come on, how can you go around in society like that? Aisa kaisa, matlab, are you getting it? So that is very, very violent, which our people were never there. So we understood, our Acharya, Supreme Lord, everybody understood that right balance between internally maintaining your exclusive love for Krishna and at the same time being aware. See, that's why Krishna himself is like that. 7th to 12th chapter Bhagavad Gita, it is supposed to be purely Bhakti Yoga. We can sit and count how many verses are there where Krishna is accommodating all these other guys. Correct? In 12th chapter also, it is supposed to be Bhakti Yoga. Chapter ka naam hai Bhakti Yoga. In that chapter also, Krishna has included whom? He has included even social welfare people in that. Saying that, Arey, you don't want to do something for me, at least do something for someone here. Come on. Don't say that you will not do anything for anybody and lead a selfish life. Can you imagine how inclusive is Krishna? So I think this would actually increase our appreciation for Krishna. That how our Lord is so inclusive in terms of, getting everybody in his arms or whatever you want to call it. Okay. Yeah, I think we'll end now. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanand.